Hello, this is John from Revit for Interior Designers, and here's a problem we ran into in one of my recent classes. I am creating a reflective ceiling plan here in my project, and I created a 2x2 acoustical tile ceiling. I then clicked on the ceiling and I assigned it the phase that was created as existing. And I mentioned here under phase demolished that it was demolished under the new construction phase. On this reflective ceiling plan, I'm actually in the new construction phase. And I've got phase filter set for show all to display this demolished ceiling here. This assumes you understand how to use phasing in Revit. But the problem here is that when I select this ceiling and I assign it to be demolished, the perimeter of the ceiling is showing correctly as dashed. However, the lines inside the ceiling are not accurate. They're showing solid. This is a bit misleading because I would expect the acoustical tile ceiling themselves to be appearing demolished or dashed. So there's a problem here. Now, as we know, if we click on this, there is this acoustical tile ceiling here. And if I hit edit type, I can modify the materials of that ceiling. Again, materials determine what the ceiling looks like in this reflective ceiling plan. It's graphics. So here, if I go to the structure of that ceiling, this is using a material called acoustical ceiling tile 24 by 24. And if I open it here with the little button there to launch the materials, here, when I use this ceiling material, it's using this hatch pattern here under foreground. It's using that hatch pattern to display the 2x2 ceiling. The problem is that the ceiling in this case is being demolished. And so I cannot use this ceiling type here, 2x2 acoustical system, because it's currently set up to appear with a solid hatch pattern here. These are my hatch patterns. I chose ceiling 2x2. So there's a problem. And if I look through this list, there are no 2x2 ceilings, or any other ceiling for that matter, that are appearing dashed. And so how do I get this graphic to appear correctly in Revit? I've got the ceiling appearing dashed at the perimeter. Cancel this. Only because this ceiling is set to be demolished under the new construction phase. And if I click on the screen, you see here at the bottom of the properties, I'm actually in the new construction phase. Because it says show all, it's going to show the objects that are being demolished in this phase. So the dotted line is correct. The interior graphic is incorrect. So how do we accommodate a dashed ceiling? So one thing is you need to click on the ceiling and create a brand new ceiling here that in fact is demolished. Meaning the graphics will appear as if the ceiling is demolished. So if I click on the ceiling here and I take that acoustical tile ceiling and I duplicate it, and let's say, for example, I'll put my initials on the end, on the beginning of this, a prefix, just to confirm it's mine, and I'll write the word demo. I've made a new ceiling type, and under the structure, it shows me the materials that make up that ceiling. And here it says it's using, in terms of the graphics, what you see on the screen when you display the ceiling plan is using this graphic of the acoustical ceiling tile 24 by 24 material. That material needs to appear dashed. And so if I click on this, I'll take this material, I'll make a duplicate of it, and I make a copy of it where the duplicate is dashed. So I will right click and duplicate this asset material. And then here I'll call it, I'll put my initials in the front there, and I'll call this demo. This is a new material. So I do a search here for JM. I'll find that material again. There's the ceiling. And if I use this material, under graphics, this is how it'll be depicted in Revit. It's currently depicted as a ceiling that's 24 by 24 graphic pattern under the surface. And so it's incorrect. And if I click here, again, I do not have an option for showing these ceilings dashed. We can make another ceiling type here with the little button here. New fill pattern. I can add a new ceiling pattern to the list, but it only allows me to create parallel lines of a certain distance apart or a grid. And so how do I get a dashed design in there? Well, this is what you have to do. You have to, and let's go ahead and make a new pattern here. Here's a new pattern here. And here, I'll make a new pattern. I'll call it jump to identify its mine. I'll call it grid, 2 by 2, and I'll call it demo. And here, because I have no settings to make anything dashed in this menu, I'm going to choose custom, and I go browse. And Revit wants to find a PAT file. Hatch pattern, PAT file. A pattern file is an AutoCAD file that creates hatch patterns in AutoCAD. Revit uses the same language, the same type of file to load a hatch pattern into Revit. So you can take an AutoCAD PAT file and load it into Revit. Or make one. And so what I've done is I've gone into Notepad. Here's Notepad. And in Notepad, you're going to type the following. Exactly the way you see it on the screen. I'm making two patterns. This pattern here is 24 by 24. And this pattern here is 48 by 48. Only because these numbers here say 48 by 48, 48 by 48. If you need any other sizes, you simply replace these numbers with the sizes that you want to become dashed. This one here is 24 by 24. So as you can see here, 24 by 24, 24 by 24. That's the control of this code that creates a dashed ceiling that is actually 24 by 24. So any other size you need, you simply grab this text here, copy it, Control C, do a little space here, paste it in here, give it a name, and then type in here how big you want this ceiling to become. If I wanted a 24, let's do it here, a 24 by 48 ceiling, I'd come into here and just change this to 24 and this to 24. This is one line of code. This is the other line of code. The fact that I added 24 by 24 here is going to make a 24 by 48 ceiling. These two have to change. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to keep these two. So if you type this exactly as shown, again, that's a semicolon, %, type equals model, and then you write down these numbers exactly as shown with the commas, and you have another one here with a unique title, and these numbers here exactly as shown. You save this file, save as, a name .pat file. So as an example, cancel this. I will launch my folder here. On my screen here, I've got one of my folders here, my C drive work folder, as an example. I put the name of the file. Again, you take this file here, you go File, Save As, you give it a name, and then at the very end of the name, you put .pat. That's this file here. I called it Ceiling Grid Demolished .pat file. And it recognizes it here as an AutoCAD hatch pattern definition. Okay, so now we have a text file that will create the hatch patterns. So in Revit, when you go here to browse, you choose that file. Browse. and I'll navigate to my folder. I'll go to my folder here. I click on the file, I hit open, and it loads that code into Revit. So I've got two materials in that file that I can use. Which one do you want? Do you want 24 by 24 or do you want 48 by 48? Currently, let's use the first one, 24 by 24. I hit OK. And then lo and behold, that pattern is loaded into Revit. The name that I gave the text file. Let's open it here. This name here becomes the name of the pattern here in Revit, because that's the one I chose from the list. This is the PAT file over here on the left. So that's loaded into Revit now. I selected it. I hit OK. So now I have a ceiling called a 2x2 acoustical tile ceiling demo as a material. Again, materials determine what the products look like when appearing in Revit as a ceiling plan, a floor plan, a wall, whatever the case may be. In this case, the surface pattern of that ceiling is going to show up as dashed lines. So if I hit OK and I accept it, because that's the material here loaded into my material of the ceiling, and I hit apply and OK, lo and behold, the ceiling is now dashed in terms of the hatch patterns here. So now we have two things happening. We have a ceiling here called 2x2 demo, which has a material that is dashed. Therefore, this is dashed inside the body of the ceiling. And we have a ceiling that's dashed itself on the outside here, only because here it's been flagged to be demolished in the new construction phase. Escape. And in Revit, under properties, I'm actually in the new construction phase. And when this says show all, it'll trigger the ceiling edges to show dashed. So if you need any other ceilings, you simply follow that logic, adjust your PAT file, add additional sizes of grids that you need to incorporate into Revit, and load them into your project as new custom materials. And those get assigned to a custom ceiling. This custom ceiling is called 2x2 acoustical tile demo, and it has a material inside of it that has been customized to show dashed lines. And that does it for this demonstration. I'll see you next time. Bye now.